Welcome to today's episode of The Growth Zone. I am Christian Bartsch. What is the core benefit of listening to this show? Business leaders in corporate and privately held companies gain insights into trends and strategies that provide them with a competitive advantage in the marketplace. Each episode focuses on an area such as marketing, sales, innovation, or funding that is absolutely critical to the growth of companies, whether they are startups or corporate global players, where management needs to juggle the challenges of market entry or knowing how to navigate the uncertainties of disruptive developments. Mind feeding is where clarity evolves and helps solving organizational challenges. For those who listen to the entire episode, I have a special surprise gift. I am working on some great guests that are industry leaders in management, innovation, and marketing. Let's get started on today's episode. So today I've got with me Huang, and how to safeguard and market-proof your financial portfolio from any crisis is today's topic. And so, Echo, can you please tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yes. Well, my name is Echo Huang, and right now I live in Minnesota, just about 10 miles west from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I was born and raised in China. And when I was, so I grew up in a city called Shenzhen that is next to Hong Kong. And Shenzhen was a small fishing village when we moved there with 50,000 people. But former leader Deng Xiaoping chose Shenzhen as the first special economic zone in China. And it has become probably the most successful story in China. Now it's one of the richest city in China. It's considered the Silicon Valley in China. So I grew up there until I was 20. I came to the U.S. to study finance with $800 in my pocket, and I. I think I struggled through the first year and finished my degree in 3.5 years and settled in the Twin Cities here in Minnesota. So I started in accounting, public accounting, working for KPMG, Pete Marwick, for about 4 years, helping wealthy people with their financial planning, including tax returns. And then very quickly, I realized I enjoyed the financial planning part of my job so much more than tax season, preparing tax returns. And so in 2000, I decided to change my career to be a financial advisor. So that was 20 years ago. And probably that was the most important decision I've made in my career. And because I just love what I do to help people plan for their future. Fast forward, so 5.5 years ago, I started my own company, Echo Wealth Management. And so now I can truly say that I have realized my American dream and helping people plan for their future to build confidence, financial confidence to follow their passions and dreams. And so today I am here sitting in Minnesota here, actually looking out the window, a snowy day. The snow came really early this year. And I will during the pandemic, of course, was very unexpected, and I uh, had helped clients plan for this kind of recession. So I am very excited to be on this show to share my tips with you, your listeners, in terms of what people can do to safeguard and grow their portfolio during challenging times. So, Christian, I was thinking perhaps I'm going to just kind of jump into the major things I see what people should do, especially during this kind of unprecedented, right, crisis. So, what I was thinking is people first need to think about protect themselves with first always adequate emergency fund. In general, I would say have at least enough money in checking and saving account that is safe and liquid to pay for at least 6 months of living expenses, because that will allow them to, if they lose their job, they have the time to look for a new one. And also for people, if they are looking for better work opportunity, if they have to move to another state or different place to take a better job, they have the money to allow them to do it. So I think it's, and also that help people reduce the urge to be panic, like to sell stock portfolio when they go down. And so I think the first tip for people is first have adequate emergency fund. And then the second thing I think is really important for them to also make sure they have a proper insurance. We are talking about insurance. Maybe I'm speaking as an American here. Healthcare cost is so high that when people, if they don't have a proper health insurance, or for example, life insurance and disability insurance, during this kind of crisis, they could lose a lot of assets they have accumulated. So I would say first work on protecting what they have, including disability insurance. So a lot of people may not think about that, especially let's say 40-year-old high income earner, but they are just thinking about life insurance, not thinking about disability insurance. And I think it's important to have that to protect their ability to earn income over the long term. And I think the third point, I also want people to think about, especially planning for their financial future, is to create a comprehensive financial plan that addresses budgeting, cash flow, retirement planning, asset allocation, insurance review, estate planning, and tax planning. So, in all these categories of personal financial planning, they need to have some kind of plan, preferably using some kind of software or work with someone they can trust, like expert, to develop a plan with a written, goals and monthly budget so that they can track it and see how they're doing. The cash flow, uh, I cannot ignore cash flow, maybe based on my accounting experience as an auditor years ago. When you look at a company, you always have to look at cash flow because companies fail because they ran out of money. So I think of personal financial planning is equally important to look at cash flow, tracking inflow, outflow year by year. The software tool can help you project that going forward. It's so critical to know what money comes in and where you spend the money for the next 5 years, because sometimes stock market takes 5 years to recover. So if you are able to see the cash flow clearly and make the investment decision that way, not to take too much risk, and have proper asset allocation. So the asset allocation piece is to decide how much risk you can afford taking based on your personal situation, the time you have, the personal risk profile, and time you have for the money to be invested in the marketplace. And estate planning, I think it's extremely important as well, is because of during pandemic, you could get sick in a hospital. If you don't have a proper legal document to designate a person to help you make those financial decisions and healthcare decisions, it would be disaster. So I want people right now to review that. And so, for example, keep in mind that it gets complicated. It sounds complicated, but you don't have to do this alone, because you can work with a competent fiduciary financial advisor to get a plan developed and help you implement and track. From the investment front, I want people to remember uh, money for the long term. You really need to invest with long term perspective. So sometimes people don't really know when they look at a pot of money. I think what they need to do is try to think of in three different kind of bucket. Like one is we talked about the emergency fund. And the second is more like intermediate term, like within 5 years, that kind of, that investment can be invested, but not much risk at all. And the goal is to outperform your savings account. But then you have the third bucket that is more than 5 years, could be decades, for retirement, decades down the road. For the third bucket, you really have to kind of think about not looking at it daily and try to make emotional decisions there, because successful investing experience requires patience and discipline. So, this is the perfect time to review your current investment strategies to see if you must make some adjustments and have a balanced plan. So, the growth strategies needs to be put in place to keep up with inflation. And a lot of people, when they think about risk, they are thinking about, wow, I would lose money. But if you are not keeping up with the inflation and you are being too conservative and just try to put in cash and bonds, you are probably losing, you're guaranteed to lose money because of inflation over the next 2 decades. So I also want people to think about, for the long term money they don't need for at least 5 years, they definitely need to invest more in the stock market globally, uh, in order to outpace inflation in the long term. Um, so, Christian, another thing I was just thinking about is, in addition to diversification as a important investing principle, right? Diversification is one way to reduce your risk, because you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. And effective diversification requires people to think all type of investments, they behave differently. So some can go up, some can go down. So they don't go up and down at the same time to reduce volatility over time. So since we are right now live in a world that is well connected, and in the US, I think stock market is about 58% of the entire world. So I think for Americans here, we actually do need to invest overseas, not just invest all the money in the US. And so it needs to be globally diversified portfolio that would weather the downturn better, because the next 2 decades doesn't mean that US stock will continue to outperform foreign stocks. And I think the another principle of investing, as I see, is a lot of people, they are trying to say, well, right now stock market is so high. They say, well, should I just take some profit off the table and park somewhere, because all the news about economy and pandemic is just way too bad, and maybe later when I feel comfortable I will go back in. Unfortunately, for most people, if they just get out of the market and park it somewhere, they may miss very important uptake of the stock market. And I want to prove the point of why the time in the stock market is more important than timing of the stock market. Because according to the data by JP Morgan's Guide to Retirement, as of August 9, 2020, it shows that 7 of the best 10 days for the S&P 500 occurred within 2 weeks of the 10 worst days. So if you think about that, it's like, if you see the worst days, very likely the best days will come after. And also another study is, if you the same time frame, let's say you invest $10,000 on January 3rd, 2000, in S&P 500 index, that is large US companies stocks, until August 9th, 2020. If you don't even change, you just leave that, stay invested, after all these recession, I think 3 recessions, the annualized return is 6.12%. But if you missed 10 best days out of over 20 years, the rate of return per year is reduced to 2.18%. So just kind of think about that. Only 10 days, the best days out of over 20 years, you're only earning 2.18%. You barely keep up with inflation. So if you miss 60 best days, the return is negative 7.67%. So in that case, for people who are very unlucky, they just get out of the market after a really bad downturn, but they don't get back in timely, they would
Yes.
really make actually lose money over time.
Exactly, and I agree with that because the key thing, something that I learned from very beginning when I started investing money,
Hmm.
I learned one of the key things is first thing, don't listen to what your bank manager is telling you because he's just trying to sell you something that he wants to get rid of. And
Hmm.
secondly, if it were that good, he wouldn't be working in the bank. He'd be doing it himself at his own account, and he certainly would have the money to be able to do it and wouldn't be working in the bank. And the second thing, of course, be in the market when everybody's going out. And the same thing applies whether it's in real estate, investment of in the stock market, other kind of things. You look where everybody's going out, check it out. Is it worth going? Warren Buffett does it similar as well in the end, and George Soros and all these other different people as well doing that similar thing. And I've been doing that as well in the past. That's how I as well. But by the time I left school, I had quite a good financial assets in my account compared to my schoolmates who were spending the money on chewing gum and used cars and all this stuff. They are all this garbage they were wasting their money on. And by the time I had finished my education, I bought myself a brand new car with all the stuff I wanted to have, and
Hmm.
it was debt free. And I even part of it, I even before I even paid for the car with the last payment before they delivered to you, I even invested into a business on the stock market where I thought that's the right moment, and I doubled my financial assets, and that's why I used the entire money to pay for my car. So I didn't need to owe anybody money.
Hmm.
And that's the thing, especially when you think a car is quite an expensive vehicle.
Hmm.
And if you say half of it actually is being paid through investing at the right moment
Hmm.
and selling at the right moment, you can get good things. In contrast, where I was working some of the years, I had some colleagues who invested in things where I said, no, don't invest there. That's not the right thing. And they lost like $60,000 within half a year.
Hmm.
And that was all gone,
Hmm.
which means the shares that they bought, it hyped up because, of course, the hype goes and eventually drops down. The same thing, the oil crisis in the 70s, the same game happened as well. There you can see the things, and that's, as you say, you have to see what's the right timing, and you have to see as well. Even if you have money available, you have to look, what am I going to put the money in? Some things might be good, some things might be not good. You have to really research on the business. What are they doing? How are they doing? In what direction is it doing? For instance, 7 years ago, I invested in one stock of a company that makes silicone products and so on. And I thought everybody's going out of it. And I thought, why not? I see its potential. Now, 7 years later, my assets have got 42%.
Hmm.
It's increased.
Hmm.
So if I would sell it now, I would make I would get this 42% interest on it, practically, which is a great thing. I actually had totally forgotten of it. And that's exactly what Warren Buffett and all the other guys say. Just forget the stuff. Of course, certain things we have to keep our eyes on.
Hmm.
And speaking of it, as you mentioned, that's why you used to work for KPMG. I did that as well. So we have a similar idea in certain things when we look at companies where we want to invest in that. And that's the thing. We have to take the time and think sensibly. What are we going to do instead of acting on impulse? Because when we
Yeah.
act on impulse, it's the same thing. Somebody sends us an annoying email, we act on impulse, and suddenly afterwards we notice we starting a row totally unnecessary, although we totally misread the email and was meant totally different.
Hmm.
And when you read it again with a cool breath on it, you notice there's nothing to it. I just
Hmm.
overread one sentence and boom.
Yeah, I think one thing that can help people not to make emotional mistakes to destroy their portfolio is to learn more about behavioral biases we have as human beings, because we are certainly emotional about the money. It takes a long time to accumulate, right, to save the money. And I think some people I mean, they just need to kind of learn, for example, self-control. Some people have really hard time controlling themselves because they spend too much, they don't save enough. And the negative impact of that bias is because they may take much higher risk than they can afford taking because they didn't save enough, so they think they need to take a lot higher risk to get to a higher return. So that could be risky for some people. And then the same thing with overconfidence. Some people, they feel like they just know one or two companies well. Either they work there or know someone work there, and then they have that overconfidence and put too much money in very few companies, and that could be very disastrous as well when your decision is, when you're not spreading your money around, and that could destroy their portfolio. And for people, I think during pandemic, it's more frequently to see people who are panicking and just fearful, because when you don't feel safe in terms of health, people are already stressed out, and with high employment, they don't see when the vaccine will come out and when this economy will open up. And I think it's okay to feel fearful, because that's the feeling, you have to recognize that, but it's just important for them to remind themselves the decisions are made based on fear are most likely wrong, especially for people who are not trained to manage investments. And that's why I want people to kind of remember, it's okay to feel fearful during pandemic, but let's recognize a few things you can do. And there are something that you shouldn't do on your own, or you really do need to seek expert advice before you do something. So I think, during pandemic right now, I have realized that we don't need a lot to be happy. I guess because we can't do traveling, we can't go to concerts or anything, right? So we have to kind of learn, what can we do now to get through the recession in the best way we can. Number one, obviously, is stay healthy and fit. And that's one thing. It's going to help your portfolio if you stay healthy. And of course, in the US here, people are debating about wearing masks, and I'm saying, no, that's the only way right now is actually effective before we have good vaccine next year. So I would say wear a mask, and then of course, uh, eat healthy, because now you pretty much don't go to restaurants anymore, and we are at home and cook more frequently. I would say you can choose to make healthy food, and health and wealth go together. I emphasize this a lot for people, because what I have seen is when people are not paying attention to their health and invest in their health when they're younger, well, they will see very high medical bills in the 60s or 70s, and they will not be able to enjoy the wealth they have accumulated during their retirement years. So I just think that at this moment, people really need to start paying attention to what they eat, nutrition wise, because there are so many packaged food out there. If you don't read labels, they're just really bad for you, especially very high sugar content level. So I'm a wealth manager, but I always bring up the health factor, because when we help clients plan for their better future, health is so important for them. Good health.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I see the same thing as well with all these different things, especially with these lockdowns. They do affect as well, of course, our mindset. It affects as well our well being, that of our kids, employees, and so on. And even if we are business owners, business leaders, we have to deal with all different situations. We might have maybe some very intimate conversations with some employees who have maybe some family issues and asking us for advice, because we have as well maybe kids and other kind of things. And they ask us, yeah, what are you doing? Trying to think over the border of the thoughts, because they know that usually that's how we usually converse about different things and topics, and we try to bounce ideas and talk about things, because that helps us as well process and get new ideas. And especially as you're talking about health and different things, especially when these lockdowns are, of course, then you can't go to the gym, and then if you there have the opportunity, especially where you're living, and you can do like your own little bit of a gym or whatever, you can create your own kind of gym and check out, of course, eating less gluten and other kinds of things, being a bit more healthy. It helps you. And of course, now and then checking, and I had this conversation just a few days with some other people, and it's interesting. We all noticed suddenly we went up with kilos and noticed, oops, I can't get into my custom suit and other stuff, and you think, okay, I don't need it, but I then eventually went down again, and I was sometimes I had really some fun, because I even put on, I had for some events that were going to take part this year, I even had this new smoking done, because I didn't fit into the other one, and they were all custom made,
Yeah.
and one was that had the wrong color combination. Unfortunately, when it was delivered, there was a little mistake by my my person who did that for me, and yeah. But I was then sitting in it and doing my work, and I thought it actually feels quite nice sitting in there smoking, actually at home. But yeah, at least I'm using it as long as it fits. And on the other hand, when there was the lockdown here as well, you stop doing your sports and other things. You don't go to the gym, and suddenly body starts complaining. And what
Mm-hmm.
did I do? Eventually, I went, of course, to my doctor, and he said, you have to take the painkillers. We can't do anything. And then I said, there must be a different solution.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is, I went and for my first time, I went to get some traditional Chinese medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And within 2 hours of treatment, my pain that I had for 5 months went away, gone. And I thought, hey, this is awesome. This is awesome.
Awesome.
It cost me, of course, a lot of money
Yeah.
compared to if I go to a doctor where my health insurance pays it, but then I had to pay myself. But hey, so good that I even told my employees, hey, you have to go there. If you've got some issues, go there, get it done. Even my father went and got a treatment and said, hey, that's actually quite good. It's actually working. Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, for me, last Thanksgiving here, I bought a Peloton bike.
Mm,
And I bought a Peloton bike because I decided in the winter it takes too much time to drive to the gym. And so I did not know the pandemic was coming. But of course, in February, when everything was closing down, I was like, oh my goodness, I have my Peloton bike right here. All I need to do is get on the Peloton bike. And I've been riding this for, during this lockdown. So I am actually I am fitter right now and healthier than last year because I actually exercise more on Peloton bike every day, and I can also do other like dumbbell and fitness everything using the Peloton app. And so I would say, another thing I have done is to cut back eating beef. I have
mhm.
just realized the environmental impact on, eating meat, especially beef. So I just reduce a lot more meat and eating more seafood, fish, like salmon and vegetable. And that has, I pretty much right now, I think this year it has been my experiment of keto diet. I can say that combined with my Peloton bike exercise and eating more vegetable and less beef, I am actually feeling better. So this is not is like how to prove your portfolio, but in my mind, it's about living better, right? You manage your portfolio to grow it, and you feel more positive about your future when you feel healthier, when you're in a better shape. So
Yeah,
I
you're
think that
more
will,
stress resistant.
yeah, I think it will have a better impact as you make those investment decisions over time. And I also would encourage people to gain some financial knowledge by reading more books and blogs and listening to different kind of podcasts, because they don't have to be experts but they need to know the basic. And I think a lot of people, when they don't have a basic financial literacy, I think in the US here, it's not required to have that education in school. So I personally believe that it's so important for people to have the basic idea about, not to take on too much consumer debt and learn about, compound interest, how it works, and of course the basic budget 101, and then learn the investing principle of, diversification. And when it comes to if their financial situation gets more and more complex, they need to know how to look for the right kind of financial experts to help them. So in the US here, we there is difference between fiduciary financial advisor and just other advisor, because many people can call themselves financial advisors because it's not the same kind of standard like passing a bar exam to be an attorney or CPA or a doctor.
Mm.
You see what I mean? So if fiduciary advisors are required to act based on clients' best interest, and in terms of managing portfolio, they uh, they are not getting paid commission by making one sale. So it's much higher standard than suitability standard. So that is important for people to at least have some kind of knowledge as they go out there and say, I haven't done anything to plan for my future because I feel naive or I'm not confident. It now is the right time to think about, if you are not doing anything on your own and you don't have the interest and the expertise, how do you go out and seek the right kind of expert you can trust? So I just decided last year to write a book. So now the book was released in June. It's the title is "Own Your Future: One Woman's Story of Immigration and Financial Freedom." So I had three purposes in writing this book. So the first is to educate and inspire more people to start financial planning now to own their future, regardless how much money they have right now. The second is to reveal how wealth management is done by a fiduciary financial advisor so that readers can decide how to choose the right financial advisor to partner with. The third is to encourage more women to choose this as a profession to address women's unique challenges here, because I call myself triple minority here in personal wealth management because I'm Asian woman and new immigrant in the US. And we normally don't see a lot of people getting into personal wealth management as women here. So the book aims to give you the tools and education to think properly about your money, to identify who should be on your financial team. For example, I mentioned about tax CPA, estate attorney, insurance agent, mortgage banker, and then to offer insights into like what each of them should deliver for you and work together with you. So the key message I have is wealth management can be complicated, but it doesn't have to be.
Exactly, and that's why it's always good having somebody who can give you advice, the right support based on what is good for you instead of
Mhm.
what commission they can get.
Yes.
Because otherwise, they are being. It's like being like taking bribes from the insurance companies on the investment companies and so on, who are trying to sell you some kind of portfolio or mutual fund or anything that's good for them, but not necessarily
Right.
for your client. Good. And that's a thing that eventually that's where often people then lose money. But if they focus on having somebody give them proper advice based on what's for them and
Mhm.
paying them a decent amount of money as well for the good advice,
Mhm.
and taking the extra effort to look really and understand what's feasible as well, because I said portfolio building, that it has to be the right size. You can't overstretch diversification.
Mhm.
Because, for instance, when I used to do all my stock market investments and that, I used to know after time how much I have to put at least into the market, so that when I have to sell, I'm able to recoup not only my banking expenses and the taxes and so on, but actually I wouldn't lose money,
Mhm.
because that's the thing. And sometimes I used to have stock maybe for 3 days. Sometimes I had them for several years in the portfolio. It just depended very much. And if you do them wrong, you overstretch, then you have too little money in the package that you're investing, and you're losing money. And that's the thing, because then it can be really, really costly. And when you think of it, you have had to work for that money in the first place to make that money. And then you wanted to grow it instead of to burn it on some kind of stupidity by investing in the wrong way or doing too much at different places at the same time. It's like as if you'd go and decide you buy 5 houses in 5 different places when you don't actually have the financial assets nor the money. And just because some bank is willing to give you a credit, it's just crazy. Once a friend of mine said to me he wants to invest $10,000 in cryptocurrency and that. And I said, okay, what have you chosen and so on. He told me about this thing. And then the next sentence he said to me, yeah, and I'm going to take a bank loan. I said, forget that stupidity. Yeah, but I want to do it. I can get it cheap and everything. I said, no, please don't. You're going to mess yourself up. Yeah. And yeah, that's the thing. Often people don't have this understanding. They do not notice what risk management you have to do. Even if you've got millions available, you still have to do risk management and not being a fool.
Mhm.
And especially the stock market, even when I think people like Warren Buffett and so on, they're not behaving like a fool on the stock market. They have plenty of money, but they're not throwing it overboard everywhere. We just even look at his own lifestyle and a mindset on how he conducts as well his own
Mhm.
personal and private
Yeah.
life. You see how we should definitely be more sane in our behavior in the market, what we do with the money, with our assets, savings. And at a certain level, you have to, of course, as well validate each where you put the money, whether you're going to get a realistic return or somebody is trying to tell you some crazy interest rate that you're going to get back, when you think maybe it's not such a good idea if somebody is telling you you're going to make 25% on it, when in fact you can expect that it's a very high risk. And if your risk level isn't that high,
Mhm.
it's not good to put the money in. And maybe it's even a scam. And the money is then anyway gone with the wind.
Yeah, the most important thing is make sure don't fall for the scammers, right? So that's probably the most important due diligence. And as we talk about, in the U.S. here, I know, the laws have been put in place to protect the investors. So extremely important to check the people who manage your money, where you open the accounts. And because we all know Bernie Madoff scandal, and you simply need to make sure the money when you open accounts is with the institution that is qualified. You can verify your accounts. You can see your daily balance anytime you want. It's not coming from somebody who prints a statement to show you that the return is positive every single month. You can verify. So it's extremely important to do some checking and due diligence on the people who manage your money. So that's another reason why I in my book I have one entire chapter about how to look for the right people to help you. And then there is one chapter about overcoming behavioral biases, and so that people don't make that kind of stupid mistake on their own. And there is one chapter about estate planning, and of course, one chapter about retirement planning and how people can plan for their future for at different age groups. So, for the younger group, these are the major things they need to do to plan for retirement. And then for the midlife, and then of course later after 65, how do they actually live purposefully during their retirement years? And I think it's important for me to share my personal journey. So the first two chapters is about how I came to this country with very little money, and I had to overcome. So I have very little money, and as a foreigner, what what I had to do to get to a better place financially. And so it's important for people to remember they don't become a millionaire overnight. It's all about making the right decisions over time. So you can see the accumulative benefit. So I think sometimes people really want to find out how to get rich quick, and I would really emphasize on the fact that most successful people they they have a healthy money habit to start, and they follow some principles in their personal life and of course managing their portfolio, and that will get them to a place where they are able to earn more money but not spend it all. They have a plan to put that money to work for them. So it's not just earning the income, it's how you can build a portfolio so that your portfolio can work really hard for you when you're not working very hard anymore as you get older. So I think it's important for people to know they can always learn something and then take proper actions. No matter if they have right now debt, or they only have 100,000 or 10,000, they can still make a plan to get them to a better place over time. So in my book, I lay out all kinds of client examples on tax planning as well, and then insurance planning. So it's really, I think, for people, when they see examples they can kind of relate to themselves. And for each chapter I have some questions for readers to ask themselves, so that they can, from each chapter they can decide, okay, what can I actually do to better my financial situation in order to own my future. So that is something I see as a mission, because after 20 some years now in the business, as I look back, I used to think that I would write a book when I'm retired. And then last year, I thought I enjoy what I do so much, helping people. We serve clients all across the U.S., and I have several clients overseas as well. And I'm thinking, I don't even I don't think I will retire soon. So what I want to do going forward is uh, use the book to talk to more people to help them plan for their future, even though they are not my clients. Because when I was growing up in China, I had one very important role models who was an author from Taiwan. Her name was Echo Chan. And because she was a citizen from Taiwan, that's a separate government from mainland China, and she was able to travel to more than 50 countries and wrote many stories about people living in the US, in Europe, and even in Sahara Desert. And I was so inspired as a teenager. I read all her books. I couldn't do I My family didn't even have money to travel to next town, but I was dreaming big about someday I would travel the world just like Echo Chan. And then one day when the opportunity came, I quit my job. I studied English for 4 months and passed the exam. And later I was lucky enough to obtain a full-time student visa to come to the US in 92. And I decided to choose her name as my middle name. So that's why now I am Echo Huang, and in the US. And since I read so many books and I admire authors, and I really hope that my book will inspire some people to start working on their personal financial planning as soon as possible. If I could change a few people's life, I would be very happy, because as an author, I think this is something going forward will be my mission for the long term. Hello?
So it was awesome to have you here in the show, Echo. Where can people connect with you?
Yeah, you can visit my personal website. That's the name of the book, ownyourfuture.guru. That's .guru. Ownyourfuture.guru, because I want to be personal guru for many people. And if you're interested in my company service, you would visit my company website, echowealthmanagement.com. And I would love to connect to people on social media. I am most active on LinkedIn. And certainly you can connect with me on Instagram and Twitter. And let me know what questions you have. And I would love to point you to the right direction if you are not my client.
Awesome. So it was great having you here. Thank you for being part of the show.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of The Growth Zone with Christian Bartsch. Thank you for listening. Please leave a review or rating here on iTunes or on podchaser.com. If you found the content helpful, then share it on social media. I would like to invite you to follow our show so that you don't miss the upcoming interviews with leaders in the market. Simply visit the website follow.premiareach.com. I will be adding the link also to the description of this episode so that you just need to click on that link. For those of you who are listening and signing up to follow the show, I have reserved a free copy of the Ultimate Guide on Content Marketing. This is the strategy that got me top corporate clients like McDonald's, Linde, Hewlett-Packard, Deutsche Bank, Volvo, and many others. That strategy has been working for over 10 years. It also got me contacts with police, transport authorities, military, and several universities, and even leading research institutes. For sure, it also worked wonders as it got me many small, medium-sized entrepreneurs and enterprises as clients. And that even included international clients from all around the world. The link to sign up for our free broadcasting service and the guide is follow.prmediareach.com. That will give you access to the most recent version of my ultimate guide on content marketing. You can follow me as well on Twitter by using the Twitter handle CAP_Bartsch. That's spelled Charlie, Alpha, Papa, Bravo, Alpha, Romeo, Tango, Sierra, Charlie, Hotel. Yes, that is CAP_Bartsch. Charlie, Alpha, Papa, Bravo, Alpha, Romeo, Tango, Sierra, Charlie, Hotel.